Hello everyone, welcome to a spotlight on Temtem. You probably already know what this game is, you've probably heard of it, you've probably seen quite a bit of it, and if not, you're about to find out, because this is pretty much a Pokemon like MMO. Usually, I'm not a huge fan of calling game genres after certain games, like roguelike, like Metroidvania, that kind of thing, and apparently I'm going into a battle here, so it's a perfect opportunity for me to show you what this game is all about. The first thing is you have dialogue options, which is actually, I don't think I'm a huge fan of that, because most of the time I don't really care about the trainers in the world. It does give the world a more lively feeling to it, I'll admit that, but generally speaking I'm not a huge fan. As you can see, it's literally Pokemon. The moves, even where possible, share names. They do similar things, I'd say. There is also like a good amount of like new moves and sometimes like nibbles, just like bites, but it's different because it's nature type. All the typings obviously are also different. We'll go into that in a little bit. I've played about an hour and a half, 2 hours of this game so far, and I must say I am rather... Wrong move. That was nimble, not nibble. There's also a move called nibble. That's totally on me. So far I'm liking it quite a bit. The aesthetic of the game is really pleasing. Honestly, I like the aesthetic more than playing Sword and Shield. I have not played Pokemon Sword or Shield, but I don't use that on a enemy again. I like this more. This is kind of as if Generation 3 of Pokemon was the end of like the style and atmosphere for Pokemon as far as like their evolution there goes, because Generation 4 onwards things got like a little bit more edgy, and then Generation 5 got just a little bit weird, and then it just ends up going in a different direction design wise, with like creature designs and world design. And I feel like this is the three-dimensional version of what it would be like if we were still in Gen 3. And I mean that in the best way possible. Also, Spark is not a damaging move. You can use stat boosting moves on enemies. This is the first time I've actually done it, but apparently you can do that. So don't do that. So you might have noticed that when I'm selecting attacks here, I have white circles around the Pokemon I can attack. I can also attack my partner Pokemon, but you don't really want that now, do you? But you might have also noticed that when I use DC Beam on these flying types, or wind types as they're called, the circle becomes green, which means that they do in fact deal double damage. You can also have a red circle appear around them, and that means red half damage or even a quarter damage. Green circles can also mean 4 times damage if the types do match up, I suppose. I have not seen that yet, but for all intents and purposes, that should work. At this point, I'm just explaining how Pokemon works though, but it's really important to understand that this is Pokemon. But this is actually a very good moment for me to show you how it's also different from Pokemon, because as you can see, the moves don't actually have PP like they do in Pokemon. They have mana costs or stamina costs, and if you don't have enough stamina to use a move, and stamina gets regenerated every turn to a certain extent, you are overexerted and you have to skip a turn, or you have to switch out. So I'm going to switch out here, and you can see my Genki is asleep here, and it has a little one next to it, which I'm supposing means it's going to be asleep for one more turn. But unlike in Pokemon, when you get hit while asleep, you actually wake up, unless the move that's hitting you specifically states that it will not wake you up, and there's a very few amount of moves that work like that. You will also have noticed that this is a double battles format, and I am guessing the main reason for this being a double battles format, rather than, there you go, the red circle, rather than a single battle format, is because it is an MMO, and you can actually partner up with friends and battle NPCs, or I'm supposing other players as well, with friends. So you both send out one of your Pokemon rather than you sending out 2 of your own Pokemon. You also have wild encounters again. I'm going to assume that you know what Pokemon is, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video. So let's go into what is the equivalent of a Pokemon Center. These are healing stations. There's no Nurse Joy to speak of. There's actually like a way more streamlined process of healing, in my opinion, than having to talk to an NPC. It's not really that different, but it's different enough that I actually appreciate it. And that this game does a lot of that. Also, I have a couple more Tems here in the box. So let's actually take a look at the details of all my Tems. This is a mental type. Can I skip to the next one when I'm in the details? I think, yeah, I can. This is an electric and wind type. This is a neutral type, a wind type, another wind type, and another neutral type. So I have only called these 8 Tems, or Temtems. I do want to call them Tems every single time, but they're called Temtems. So you can switch them around as you would expect to, and since I have 2 wind types and 2 normal types, or neutral types, I'm sorry, I'm going to switch those out for what I'm assuming might be a nature type. This is also a wind type. That's not what I expected. And this is definitely going to be a nature type, right? Yeah, that's a nature type. So we're taking this one with us. As a matter of fact, we're going to put it up on the front of our team. And I don't know, I'm giving you another chance. So let's put you up in front of the team as well. You will notice that the one thing Pokemon fans have been bitching about ever since Hard Gold and Soul Silver is Pokemon following you around in the overworld. Yeah, Temtem does do that. And that is fun, but it also obviously shows you everybody walking around with their first Pokemon in the party. So you can see this dude, I have no idea what it is yet, but it looks awesome. And if I see anything that resembles it even slightly, I'll probably realize like, oh, that probably evolves into the Cloud Horse thing I saw before. And I'll be able to catch it. So I would think that a lot of like the more minor improvements in experience will rely a little bit on the fact that other people are also playing the game. But at the moment, a lot of people are playing the game, and the game launched in early access with some server issues. But those server issues have largely, if not completely, been resolved at this point. So it really is a streamlined experience, and I think this might be the dojo, which is this game's equivalent to gyms, and this definitely is not the dojo. This looks like it could be the dojo. Let's see. Sorry, Tamer, but the dojo is closed. You can't come in. I'm here to see Sophia. You see, sometimes there is a little bit more to the dialogue trees than just like, okay, I'm going to click all the options and then fight you. With normal NPCs, there is a little bit of a dialogue thing you actually have to pay a little bit more attention to. It's more of a game than Pokemon in certain ways. I'll find her. I'm probably not going to find her today in this video, but if you want to see me find her, I'm going to stream probably the entirety of this game. So do keep up to date with that. She's surfing near wind. Is there another route? I don't have a board. Another thing that I've heard is HMs have been eliminated. That would be more of a mark in the favor of this game if Pokemon didn't do that like last generation already. So I want to actually get into a battle here to show you one more very important thing before we move on. And that is that the experience gain in this game is actually to a certain extent dynamic based on your level and the level of the Pokemon you're fighting. So if your level is higher than the level of the Pokemon you're fighting, your XP gain will actually decrease. And I'm going to switch you out right away for a Tedero, just to show you like 3 different levels of Pokemon getting probably 3 different amounts of experience. Because if you're lower, you're going to get more experience. If you're higher, you're going to get less experience. So at the end of the day, over-leveling by just doing a lot of grinding is going to get exponentially more difficult as you get higher up in the level. So your team is going to somewhat easily be somewhere around the same level as long as you pay at least a little bit of attention to your game. And as you can see here, I just knocked out one of the Temtem, and after I get hit by these bubbles, you can see that's 75, that's 67, and that's 60. All from the same Temtem, but because these Pokemon, Temtem, I'm sorry, it's so ingrained in my brain, because these Temtem are different levels, they get different amounts of experience, and it's not proportional directly to their level. You'd think, oh, maybe they get like a certain percentage experience. No, they actually get less experience as they go higher up in level. And that is something that I absolutely love, because if you catch something that is a little bit on the weaker side, you're going to be able to level it up to the rest of your team fairly quickly, especially later in the game, right? Because later in the game, if you catch something that is like, or want to switch something out, because you're like, oh, I could really use a nature type right now, once you figure out what the type matchups actually are, because obviously you're going to have to relearn some of that, because it's not a one-on-one carbon copy of Pokemon. It's as close as they're legally gonna get to Pokemon without getting the crap suit out of them. But I think that they do things in such a like subtly different way that it's still worth it. And is this game itself the be-all and end-all for like Pokemon is now just dead? No. But I think this game being out there, a quality game being out there which provides some competition to Pokemon, is actually a good thing, because that might push Pokemon to innovate and like be creative a little bit more, because they've been pretty much monopolizing the entire genre for like almost 25 years at this point. And there have been attempts to make Pokemon like games. A lot of games that were made like Monster Hunter, not Monster Hunter, well, Monster Hunter to an extent, I suppose. But the monster game from Dragon Quest, right? That was a spin-off game where you could capture the monsters from Dragon Quest, and it's a Pokemon-like game. But that was a spin-off game. And then there's the one thing, I think it's on the 3DS, which didn't really take off here, but is very popular in Japan, I understand. Which is copying Pokemon as well. Those really, in my opinion, as far as I understand, never really took off to a large extent. And this at the moment is in early access, so there's a lot of room for improvement. We also know that early access games can oftentimes feel more promising than they actually end up being. So that's the flip side of it, right? But this might spark a little bit more interest in other developers taking on the genre, because that is what we really need. We don't need just this game and Pokemon, because that doesn't fix the issue. But this game could be the spark that like lights inspiration for other people to also start developing and innovating and being creative with the genre, because the genre it's been really, really stale ever since like always. It's not been a very innovative genre, and to a certain extent, if you innovate too much in a genre, it's going to not be the same genre anymore, and you start creating subgenres. Pokemon has existed, the genre has existed since 1996, and while you have a lot of people saying, well, if you put Pokemon Sword and Shield next to Pokemon Red and Blue, you wouldn't say that's the same game, and to a certain extent, yeah, that is true, but then on the other hand side, actually, yeah, you kind of would. At the base level, that's still the same game. The fact that this game switches out the PP mechanic for an MP mechanic is more innovation and change than Pokemon has gone throughout the last 25 years. And it's probably just because they didn't want to get sued, but I think from a game design perspective, that is interesting. Because if I wanted to play Pokemon, I'd play Pokemon. And obviously, there's the whole layer of this being an MMO, right? This is an MMO, and Pokemon fans have been bitching about wanting a Pokemon MMO for about 20 years. Ever since MMOs were like a thing, I'm sorry, I kicked something there. Ever since MMOs were actually like a thing, people have been bitching about wanting a Pokemon MMO with like all of the regions, and it's maybe never gonna happen. But again, this might put a little bit of heat on the Pokemon company to start thinking about doing something like that. If not a full-fledged MMO, at least give people the option to like do a co-op run or something. Just like have people come into your world, much like you would have in Animal Crossing, which you can play as a single-player game. Largely as a single-player game, but you can have people come into your town. Something like that. Maybe they kind of like did something like that, experimenting with that in Pokemon Black and White, if I recall correctly. But that didn't really go anywhere. A mechanic like that would be very welcome, and I think this might put a little bit of pressure on Pokemon to start upping its game, and that can only be a good thing in the long run. Something I probably should mention as well is that you can click on any of these moves with your right mouse, and you will learn about what is actually the power and the effectiveness and everything. All of the things you need to know about a move you can see right here in the battle screen. You don't have to go into your party to look at your moves. You can just right click on them and this little screen pops up. And that's not everything, because we have some more battle mechanics to go through. Because you can see here, once you do that on this move, for instance, energy manipulation, you get two things popping up. One of which is the default one on the left-hand side, a simple mental attack that exhausts the target for 1 turn, and it has 45 damage and 11 stamina, is what it costs. But if you have your ally Pokemon be a nature Tem, which in this case I do have, it actually gets upgraded to a 60 damage move, and it exhausts the target for 2 whole turns. So there's a little bit of synergy going on there with the 2 Tems you have out at any given time. Unlike in games like Pokemon Colosseum, for instance, where you do have double battles as your base format, but really, like, there's not a lot of synergy going on. There is a little bit more synergy going on here. Not every move does have that, but this move, for instance, would have it. So if I have a ally with poison, which I don't have, I would do a little bit extra damage, maybe? Oh no, it poisons. It poisons the enemy for 4 turns, which is actually pretty good. Because the usual, I think it's called Toxic Spikes? Probably not, because that's a Pokemon move. Poison Spikes, something like that. It only poisons, and it is only for 3 turns. So that's actually a pretty good thing that it does damage and also 4 turns of poison. I can't really, like, take advantage of that right now, though, because I don't have a poison type, as is obvious. But there is a lot of mechanics going on here, and you will also have seen in that stat menu there that there is something called priority. And even though I'm not entirely sure how priority works yet, there is also a speed stat. And I think priority and speed work together to create the order in which moves are done. So it's not just a matter of I have a higher speed stat or I have a higher priority. I don't think, at least. It's fairly difficult to figure that one out, though, I'll be honest. So in that battle I got beat up pretty bad, and that leads me to discussing that this game, it's made by definitely fans of Pokemon, but as such they probably wanted to fix a couple of issues that Pokemon generally has. And one of them issues is that the game usually is pretty easy. This game seems to be a lot more difficult, both in like just movesets and AI choices, but also in level curve. The level curve is a lot steeper, but as we discussed with the dynamic EXP gain, the level curve isn't going to impact the difficulty itself that much directly. You will, however, end up dying quite often, and that means you'll be using quite a bit of these items. This one most of all, the Tem Essence Vial. It's a full heal for your entire party, but you can only use it once. It automatically refills when you go to a Tem healing station, which is just like the Pokemon Center of this game. So you pretty much have a Pokemon Center visit, a Tem healing station visit with you in your bag at all times. So going to a healing station means that you also can heal one time out in the wild. As you can see, sometimes you also do run into wild Temtems, which are not 2 encounters at once. Usually there'll still be 2 encounters. Sometimes it's just 1. I don't know if that like has anything to do with anything, or is just like a random chance. I don't exactly know if the chance of 1 or 2 appearing is greater. It feels like you run into 2 Tems more often than not, but I cannot be sure. I'm not going to catch this dude here because I already have its evolution, which, yeah, obviously things evolve. It's still a Pokemon-inspired game. And I think, last but not least, it's very important to take a quick look through all of the menus and the settings and the customizability we have here, because it is an MMO, especially the customizability part. It's very important. And we have a little bit of a side quest menu here, which I've been ignoring for the entirety of my gameplay time so far. So we've got the squad menu, which is just like your team. You can move things around by clicking and dragging. Right-clicking gives you the details of a certain Tem. Left-clicking, And you can see it's SVs, which are pretty much like it's IVs going from 1. I haven't seen any of 0 yet. Maybe that's possible. I don't know. To 50 at the highest, I think. It has a little graphic at 50, so I'm assuming that's the highest. It's also the highest that I've seen. The TVs, which are pretty much equal to its EVs, I think, increased by knocking out certain types of Temtem. It's pretty much still as you would have Pokemon. You've got an HP stat, you've got your stamina stat, which again, it's just mana. Your special defense, special attack, normal defense. You've just got all your stats you're used to there. I don't know. I think I might have missed 1 or 2 there. Then you've got your Tempedia. There's just a Pokedex. You can click on a Tem to see its. Let's click on one I actually have to see its Dex entry or whatever it's called. Its traits, which are its possibility for abilities. Its base stats, which actually have a little chart going with it, and you can see the base stats of a Tem in game. It even tells you the TV yield which you get. It gives you all the information you want to know about a creature. Unlike Pokemon, which tries to make this like elusive stuff, and it's recently been more possible to manipulate that easier, but they still don't properly like show it as a part of the gameplay experience. You have to go look around for that. This game just straight up gives it to you, and I love that. It does not look like you can actually see where to capture certain Temtem when you are in the Dex, which is something that Pokemon obviously does show you. That might be functionality that's coming in the future, because again, this is still early access, and I think maybe not all maps are even finished yet. Maybe not all locations for Tems are finished yet. So that is excused for the time being, but that is really something they do need to get on. I haven't really been looking too much into that. Then you've got your backpack, which I've already shown off. You've got items, capture, which is just like the different kind of Tem cards. This is just a normal quote-unquote Pokeball. I'm assuming there's different kinds. Your medicines, then you've got these 2 things, which I don't have yet. And then all your key items, which are very important. But most important of all, you've got a tab with recently gotten/used items. It's literally like the most important thing here. And I think Pokemon has added something like that recently, but I can't be sure. Then you've got your customizability. You get 1 of each of these things when you start the game, other than like these onesies, which I don't have any of them yet. And you can also just like go naked, mostly naked, which gets me to a interesting thing, which I don't think I can really show off anymore. Please let me put on my pants. And that is, when you create your character, you will notice that the character selection doesn't ask you male or female. It just says body type, and it gives you a more like curved body or a more like non-curved body. And obviously the difference in that is very small. As you can clearly see with this art style, you're not going to like get huge features on your characters, which that doesn't even matter, obviously. But then it also asks you for your pronoun, he, she, or them. And while I personally don't care too much about that, it is a nice little like thing that they did include there, thinking about possible minorities there. You also have a couple of emotes. I really don't give a shit. I know it's an MMO, but I really don't give a shit. You've got a map, and it's a big map. You can zoom in, but you can also zoom out. And if you zoom out all the way, it looks like this might be like one of the maps or just the only map. I don't know if there's going to be more to this map. Again, early access. I'm giving them a little bit of a break here. Usually, I wouldn't like to do things that early access-ish because of I can't really like give opinions or critiques to a game that's still in development. But this is a game that I just, man, I'm happy it exists. Then you've got these friends menus. It's not that interesting. Your settings, you've got your language, which I'm not going to mess with. Text speed, which actually I haven't messed with yet. I'm going to put that to fast. Egg opening animations, you can put those on off. That is so huge if you're breeding Temtem. I wish Pokemon would let you skip those animations. Backpack folders, you can apparently turn off quest trackers, show or hide. That is on the map, I do believe. Show tutorials. It's an MMO, so I would personally probably not easily replay the game, but I suppose you can turn off the tutorials. Display chat, I'm not going to do that. Reset character, definitely not going to do that. Redefine controls, can't do that yet, it doesn't seem like. So that's a little bit of a bummer. Video quality, your standard stuff. Quality is just like ultra, and oh, I clicked the thing. But just to show you, I have been playing on ultra this entire time, but if you put a game on low settings, it still looks kind of decent, and I imagine it runs on mostly any modern computer. It doesn't look that taxing. I haven't had any frame rate issues, again, more than I can say for any modern Pokemon game. So that is good. I'm going to put this back on ultra though, because why the fuck wouldn't I? I would like a little bit more control over my visual settings here than just only low, medium, ultra. Audio, you've got master, music, sound. You can turn on or off the character voices, which I don't really care about. You've also got advanced, which... Is it really advanced if you only have 2 things in here? Performance stats. I guess that counts as advanced. Is that really an option though? Texture quality. Shouldn't that be on the video? I feel like that should be on the video. So I'm going to put this back on ultra, and there's probably going to be another cut because it's probably going to take a while again. We actually have reflections again. Okay, so that is all the menus. I know that's boring stuff, but it is important to go over. Those are things that really should be in, and there's not a lot of excuse because it's early access, it's not in yet. It should just be in. Any content-wise, I can understand it's early access, I shouldn't complain too much about that, but that's not content, that's just like user experience, and that should just be fine the moment you're selling a game. And they're selling this game for a full $30. So that should just like be way more than it is right now. So I do think that is everything for the time being, I have to say, about Temtem. It is still in early access, but there is a little bit of like roughness. Generally, I'd say it is worth picking up right now. For $30, there's a link down below in the description, which gets you to my referral link for the game. So that also gives me a little bit of a referral reward when you buy it through that link. If you're interested, until the next time, I've been vlogging. You've been awesome, as always. Bye.